The journey continues. Welcome to Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia, populated by roughly 2,300,000 people. I came here to learn more about state of today's country, and I also wanted to get closer to the heart of the events that took place here 50 years ago, when the capital fell under the rule of Pol Pot and his army. Today, Phnom Penh is being consumed by an inflow of foreign capital, often leaving the local population behind. What makes staying here so unsettling? Is that really the most boring and soulless capital in Southeast Asia? Have its people healed from the trauma of the past? I am going to try my best to answer these questions, but I am not sure if that's even possible. Big capital city. Flashy lights, endless motion. Everyone trying to sell you something. Ferries cruising back and forth. Hotel guests drifting toward the casino. Fortune tellers dealing cards under dim street lamps. Everything seems normal, but to understand this city's story, we have to go back to April 17th, 1975. Chapter 3: Evacuation of Phnom Penh and Building a New Society. The final months of the Cambodian civil war between Lon Nol's forces and the Khmer Rouge were particularly hard on Phnom Penh. The city was encircled by communist troops, cutting off all roads used to deliver food and supplies to the capital. As a result, rice had to be airlifted by the United States, which caused the price of basic goods to soar. The city was bleeding and losing all sense of hope. The Khmer Rouge's radical policies were planned to be implemented in full only after they seized control of Phnom Penh. So the population could not have imagined what the new government would truly bring. Meanwhile, Lon Nol's administration was steadily collapsing. Finally, on April 12, 1975, the United States evacuated American nationals and Cambodian allies. Lon Nol himself had already fled on April 1st, eventually settling first in Hawaii and later in California. Phnom Penh surrendered on April 17, 1975 at 9 a.m. The population cheered, believing that the war was finally over and life would soon return to peace. Khmer Rouge forces slowly advanced into the city to establish control over every street and neighborhood. The soldiers who entered quickly killed any remaining optimism among the citizens. None of them smiled, they wore black pajamas, their eyes were red from malaria. Many were child soldiers, already traumatized by years of American bombings. Raised in rural villages, it was their first time seeing a city and any sign of modernity. The urban population was viewed as their enemy. Pol Pot's doctrine portrayed city residents as capitalist parasites who deserved to be punished for their bourgeois lifestyle. One girl standing in the crowd tried to approach a Khmer Rouge soldier and place a wreath of flowers around his neck. Without hesitation, he stabbed her in her chest with his bayonet. She collapsed to the ground, dead. Panic began to spread. Orders from Pol Pot, Nuon Chia, Ieng Sari, and Khieu Sampan were clear. The entire city had to be evacuated to the countryside immediately. People were told the Americans were about to bomb Phnom Penh, so they must gather only essential belongings and leave at once. The sick and elderly were killed on the spot, as they were seen as useless to the new society. Anyone connected to the previous regime, including Lon Nol's soldiers, were rounded up at the stadium and executed. Everything shut down: schools, markets, and all workplaces. Money was abolished, and the central bank was blown up. Citizens were ordered to declare their education and previous jobs. Those who spoke French, worked as teachers, or held any white-collar position were executed. People were told to discard all private possessions, even their shoes, because from now on, everyone would live and work barefoot. Phnom Penh, a city of 2 million, was emptied within 5 days. From that moment, all Cambodians were forced to work in rice fields up to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, to live in communes, share everything, own nothing, have no rights, and depend entirely on the Communist Party known as Angka. Cambodia has got a Muslim minority called Chams. At first, you might think, when you see these ladies in hijabs, that they are migrants from Indonesia, for example, but no. There are around 600,000 Chams in Cambodia, and needless to say, they were also very heavily targeted by the Khmer Rouge, as all religions purged Buddhist monks as well as Chams and Christians and everyone. But yeah, and I have to say that it's a very nice mosque and they have a very well-groomed garden. The district around the mosque in Phnom Penh turned out to be packed with car repair shops. Wow. stray dogs. My biggest enemies. Fuck. I'm scared. I hope they don't bite. Because you might get a rabies from them and die if you didn't get vaccination before. I do not have one. I'm scared of stray dogs. Fuck. Another ones. It's the wrong area. When you stroll through neighborhoods like that, you are bound to come across unexpected things. Here, for example, we stumbled upon a modern gym set up inside a tin shack for some reason. As you walk further, you occasionally pass high-rise buildings under construction. That's going to be another construction area. As you can see in the background, there's another skyscraper being created. Here is a shopping mall that was completely empty. I couldn't see anyone there. And Cambodia is full of such places. Without any people, like whole shopping mall and you are the only guy. Whole new restaurant and you are the only guest. Some will house corporate offices, others apartments, and many are built as casinos for Chinese citizens, who are behind the vast majority of these developments. Before we continue the story of the Khmer Rouge, we need to talk about the key element: the relationship between Cambodia and China. This toxic friendship began in August 1970, when Mao's China started providing consistent financial and logistical support to Pol Pot's guerrillas. Later that year, Beijing also sent 400 tons of military equipment. Once the Khmer Rouge seized full control of Cambodia in 1975, China stepped in with an additional $1 billion in interest-free loans to support the regime. Throughout the Khmer Rouge years, tens of thousands of Chinese experts worked in Cambodia. The reason was simple. Pol Pot had executed nearly all of the country's intellectuals, including engineers who were desperately needed. High-level officials from both countries visited each other regularly.
中共中央主席、国务院总理华国锋对波尔布特同志说：“热烈欢迎你来我国访问，并参加我国国庆活动。”
Even after the fall of Khmer Rouge in 1979, China continued to back the shattered guerrilla army. But we will get to that part later.
卫生部长秀晨等随同来访。邓小平副主席。
You see everything correctly. Right now we are on the street called Mao Zedong Boulevard. The same Mao Zedong who was the main inspiration for Pol Pot and his policies. And yeah, once again, that's a cognitive dissonance. Pol Pot actually spent some time with Mao Zedong along with Yang Sari, and they were studying communist ideology together. So it's quite a cognitive dissonance at first, but then when you start thinking about it, it makes sense. They can't really change the name of the street because, as I told you before, Cambodia is being economically colonized by Chinese. So by wiping the Mao Zedong's name from the map of their city, they will piss them off. And just to remind you, Mao Zedong was the founder of the Chinese Communist Party, and he's the man responsible for death of something between 25 million and 40 million of his own people, of Chinese. Yeah. Embassy of China in Phnom Penh. Obviously located on Mao Zedong Street. Chapter 4 Tuol Sleng Prison, the Cambodian Heart of Darkness. Prisoners have no rights. They are half human and half corpse. They are not humans and they are not corpses. They are soulless like animals. Kenge Q, also known as Comrade Doik. When you think about Cambodia in the years 75, 79, what comes to your mind first is something between work camp and concentration camp, just like Auschwitz-Birkenau, for example. However, there is always a heart of darkness, and in the case of Khmer Rouge regime, this heart of darkness is called Tuol Sleng, security prison number 21, the deadliest prison in the world, in the history, because out of 20,000 prisoners, only 12 people survived this prison. And what can I say? Before the Khmer Rouge took power in 75, it used to be a high school, but as you know, Khmer Rouge abolished pretty much everything. They wanted to create the society that only grows rice, right? So they didn't need any schools, and they transformed the high school into the deadliest prison in the history. And nowadays, this is a museum. This prison was mainly dedicated for the Khmer Rouge members who were suspected of being spies of KGB, CIA, or Viet Cong, for example. And pretty much you could go to that prison for anything, and the youngest prisoners were little babies, because your whole family goes to prison if you are accused of being a traitor, because they didn't want to for babies to later grow up and take revenge on their parents. So that's really a terrifying place, and we'll be here. We will be there in a couple of minutes. Here we are, surrounded by new skyscrapers. Here it is, Tuol Sleng. the most haunted place in Asia. At least in Cambodia. Let's take a look. Kenge Q, better known as Comrade Doig, was born in 1942 in Kampong Tom province. He was a quiet, polite and reserved child. That's where his nickname came from. Doig means the obedient one in Khmer, the kind of boy who stands up immediately when the teacher calls his name. Thanks to his intelligence and academic achievements, Doig graduated from the prestigious Lycée Sisovat in Phnom Penh, studying mathematics. He earned the second biggest exam score in the entire country. By the age of 24, he was already working as a math teacher. Like his future leader Pol Pot, he was described as patient and effective in the classroom. A year later, Doig joined the Communist Party of Cambodia. Not long after, he was arrested for his political views and spent 2 years in prison without trial. There he witnessed brutal torture, something that would later become his own expertise. He was eventually released under the amnesty declared by Marshal Lon Nol and immediately fled to the jungle to join the Khmer Rouge insurgency. Within the movement, Doig was tasked with organizing the internal security apparatus, responsible for identifying and eliminating enemies of the revolution. After Pol Pot's forces seized control of Cambodia in 1975, Doig established a nationwide prison system. The most infamous of these facilities was Tuol Sleng, a former high school in Phnom Penh. Classrooms were converted into tiny cells or interrogation chambers. I'm inside one of these torture rooms. You can only imagine what was going on here. The floor is still stained with blood, very old blood. Upon arrival, prisoners were photographed and forced to write detailed autobiographies. From birth until the moment of arrest. Then came the interrogations. Prisoners were forced into confessing to being CIA or KGB agents or enemies of the revolution. These sessions involved horrific torture, the kind that is difficult to describe even today. Once a confession was obtained and signed, prisoners were sent to Chong Ek, the killing field on the outskirts of Phnom Penh, where they were executed, often by being blasted at the base of the skull with blunt weapons. Doig showed no mercy, not even to children or infants, who were also seemed like threats to democratic Kampuchea. Only those deemed useful were spared. Among the few survivors were men like Chum Mei, a mechanic who could repair sewing machines, and Bo Meng, a painter ordered to create portraits of Pol Pot. I just met Norn Chanli, one of 2 children who got liberated from Tuol Sleng. How old are you now?
51.
51, okay. And can you point you on these photos? Which one? Who is you? Here. Wow. Okay. Wow. The purges of the total revolution didn't spare even high-ranking Khmer Rouge officials. Vorn Vet, who served as Deputy Prime Minister of Democratic Cambodia and held ministries such as Industry, Transportation and Fisheries, was suspected of having ties to the CIA. He was arrested on November 2nd, 1978, shortly after returning from the delegation in Beijing. The irony is that he was one of the people responsible for establishing the Tuol Sleng prison, and he used to personally oversee Comrade Doig's work. Another example is Khoi Tuon, the Minister of Internal Trade, who was arrested in January 1977. The most likely reason was that he wasn't radical enough in enforcing revolutionary policies in the northern zone under his control. Here is a photo of him taken in Tuol Sleng. You can almost see the hopelessness in his eyes. A few months after his arrest, he was executed, like thousands of others. Tuol Sleng was liberated on January 7, 1979, when Vietnamese troops captured Phnom Penh. I will tell you more about the fall of the Khmer Rouge later. Doig's final order before fleeing was to execute all remaining prisoners. After that, he escaped north, toward the Thai border. For a short time, he remained active within the remnants of the Khmer Rouge, but soon distanced himself. Regret began to creep in. He changed his identity to Hang Pin and returned to teaching mathematics in refugee camps, a role he held for the next 10 years. In 1990, he converted to Christianity and started working for the American charity World Vision as a teacher and translator. Then, in 1999, Irish journalist Nick Dunlop accidentally recognized him. Doig, once the commander of Tuol Sleng, admitted to his dark past and agreed to an interview. He expressed deep remorse and empathized that he had found faith.
I have a difficult life. Now I decide to be Christian. I consecrate my life to Christ.
Shortly afterward, he voluntarily turned himself in and was arrested for crimes against humanity. In 2007, the International Tribunal officially charged him. During the trial, Doig cooperated fully, explaining in detail how the Khmer Rouge's killing apparatus worked. He apologized and asked the Cambodian people for forgiveness.
ទៅទៀតខ្ញុំសូមនិយាយអំពីបញ្ហាជាក់ស្ដែងខ្លះផ្ទាល់ខ្លួនខ្ញុំនៅពេលដែលប្រឈមមុខនឹងជនរងគ្រោះស្ត្រីមេម៉ាយកុមារកំព្រាស្ត្រីមេម៉ាយច្រើនណាស់ដែលអញ្ជើញមកនៅទីនេះថ្កោលទោសខ្ញុំចង្អុលមុខខ្ញុំបានធំចិត្តហើយខ្ញុំបានដាក់ខ្លួន ឲ្យអ្នកផងឃើញថាខ្ញុំទទួលស្គាល់ទោសអក្រិតរបស់ខ្ញុំហើយ
In 2010, he was sentenced to 35 years in prison. A sentence later upgraded to life imprisonment in 2012. Kenge Q died on September 2nd, 2020, in a hospital in Phnom Penh. He was 77 years old. I have done very bad things before in my life. Now it is time for the consequences. My unique fault is that I didn't serve God. I served man. I served communism. I feel very sorry about the killings and the past. I did not take any pleasure in my work. Kenge Q, also known as Comrade Doik.
And that was Twelve slang. Needless to say that a lot of people will find it traumatizing. However, I think that if by any chance you will be ever in Phnom Penh, you should visit this place. And if you got interested in the topic, you should find a movie on the internet called S21, The Killing Machine of Khmer Rouge. And basically that's a documentary movie produced 20 years ago, I believe, where the ex-prisoners meet with their prison guards, and basically they describe how their life looked like in Pol slang from both sides. So guards speak about how they tortured and how they killed, and the prisoners obviously describe what a horror their life was during that time. Right now I'm in a district where pretty much everything is in Chinese. It seems like everything in this country is being sponsored by this beer company called Gansberg. You can see their commercials everywhere in the city, and pretty much all of these music programs on their national television are being sponsored by Gansberg.
Speaking of beer, I needed one or two after that tough day. Happily for me, I encountered a group of tuk-tuk drivers outside of my hotel. The next day I visited the part of city where we can find embassies. For example, here is American one. 5-star hotels and ministries. But my main goal was one very specific building.
Right, and here we have it. Iconic Hotel Le Royal in Phnom Penh. It's 5-star hotel, $300 a day. And why am I mentioning that? You might think, well, it's just a hotel. Well, it's not. It's iconic place if we look at it through the prisma of the whole history, because that's the hotel where all the diplomats and journalists such as Tiziano Terzani or Sidney Schanberg lived during the time before the Phnom Penh fell to Khmer Rouge. And that's basically the place where they were all together, all Westerners together, reporting situation in Cambodia 54 years ago, right? Speaking of, if you're interested in that topic, you should watch a movie about Sidney Schanberg called The Killing Fields. That's the movie from 1984, but very good, very informative. I think that's the best movie that was ever created about that topic. And speaking of another great journalist, Tiziano Terzani, he wrote a whole gathering of his reports from Cambodia before, during, and after the fall of Khmer Rouge. He was one of the first journalists who entered Cambodia after Khmer Rouge fell. And he describes in that book how it looked. Basically, he entered through the border with Thailand, and he was like just walking the villages and seeing a lot of corpses and a lot of dying people. And what he said is that it was easy to get used to the sight of dead people, but it was very hard to get used to the sight of dying people.
I have to tell you that walking the streets of that city makes me think and feel that most of Cambodian people are simply tired by life, both physically and mentally. They have indifferent look, busy thinking about how they are going to survive next day, week and month.
If you pay that lady, she will release one of the birds, and it's supposed to give you good luck. And yeah, it looks so overcrowded out there. I feel sorry for them. But my guess is that after you pay them to release the birds or a bird, they catch them once again. I don't know how it works, but it's not a fair business for sure. So right now I'm in this part of Boulevard where these witch-telling ladies are, and you can pay them and you can ask them what will happen to you. Same here. And basically all of these ladies that you can see out there are fortune tellers. The main question that people ask here to fortune tellers is if they will get rich. Fortune telling is very popular thing in Asia. I think it's popular everywhere, but here especially. When I walk the street during the night, they are always busy. There's always someone sitting next to them and asking them for their future. All these ferries that you can see are dedicated for transporting cars and other vehicles, and they are pretty much working all the time. Actually, I wonder why they don't have a bridge here. Please be careful when it comes to stepping on wells in Asia. Avoid them at all costs, because I keep seeing it here everywhere. If you step into something like that, your leg is 100% broken. It's like 2 meters deep, at least. And it's in the city center, right? Well, we can all agree that Cambodia is going through rapid economical development. However, the question is how the wealth is getting distributed. Are the rich getting richer and poor getting poorer, like in the many countries of the world, or the money is flowing into people's pockets evenly? That's the question I don't know answer to, so I'm not saying anything.
Chapter 5. The Fall of Khmer Rouge. Before explaining how the Khmer Rouge regime collapsed, let's briefly look at its key figures. Nuon Chia, brother number 2, was the chief ideologist, and some believe he had even more influence than Pol Pot himself. Pol Pot, however, held the top position thanks to his charisma and ability to unite smaller communist factions. Ieng Sary, Pol Pot's brother-in-law, served as foreign minister, spending much of his time abroad. However, his role in the genocide remains undeniable. Khieu Samphan, head of state, was educated at the Sorbonne in Paris, where he wrote a thesis on Cambodia's underdevelopment. In December 1978, Pol Pot ordered massacres of ethnic Vietnamese along the border. On 25th of December, Vietnam invaded Cambodia, capturing Phnom Penh on 7th January 1979. The Khmer Rouge leadership fled to strongholds in Pai Lin province and the An Long Weng region, waging guerrilla war for next 2 decades. During this time, Ieng Sary made a fortune worth $10 million by selling wood and gems from the Pai Lin province, while Nuon Chia and Khieu Samphan lived quietly. Pol Pot remarried and had a daughter, Salot Sita. In 1997, fearing betrayal, he ordered the murder of former defense minister Son Sen and his family. This led his comrades to place him under house arrest. A year later, Fearing extradition, Pol Pot took his own life. He was cremated shortly afterwards. His grave is still in An Long Wen. Justice came slowly. In 2007, Nuon Chia, Kyu Sampan and Yang Sari were charged with crimes against humanity. Yang Sari died in 2013 before the verdict. In 2014, Nuon Chia and Kyu Sampan were sentenced to life imprisonment. Nuon Chia died in 2019. Kyu Sampan remains alive today. No other senior Khmer Rouge leaders were ever convicted. In case you are wondering how Christmas looks in Cambodia among the Catholic minority, I just arrived to the church of Saint Joseph. So we've got Belpay International School here, and pretty much all of these kids from that school are going straight to the church. They just ended their lessons, I guess. Hello. Hi. Right, they get scared. I don't know. I don't want to be a creep who records little children, but I don't know, that's just interesting for me. And there, if you keep going, you will find an entry to that Catholic church that we were just in one moment ago. Oh. Yeah, I guess it's a... Hi! Hello, hello. I guess it's private school. Everything is well protected. As you can see, military personnel. And yeah, they're all getting ready and working to start celebrating the Christmas Eve. It's a different style of a Catholic church than we are used to in Europe, but I like it. And now we exit the church and bam, hi! We are in the middle of busy street. Hello. You can get a popcorn. Heaven on earth. The trip was slowly coming to an end. By this time, I was honestly just waiting for my visa to Vietnam. I felt like not much more can be done in that city from my side. I came here to look for answers for that pointless genocide. However, still not everything is clear for me. First of all, let's just put things straight. The senior Khmer Rouge officials were simply psychopaths. Psychos always existed, exist today, and will exist until the end of the world. But when it comes to regular Khmer Rouge members, like soldiers, we have two factors: being brainwashed just like a member of a cult, for example, as well as being scared for own life. This means that if you don't follow orders of Ankar, you will end up in Tuol Sleng prison, for example. On the other side were the victims, millions forced into endless labor on the rice fields. We have to understand how it was possible that 50,000 Khmer Rouge members forced a nation of 8 million to live like that. The most possible answer is the Buddhist attitude toward the problem, meaning that turning your head away is better than actually facing that problem, which allowed Pol Pot and his clique to control whole society. Result? 25% of whole population dead, without any reason. I dedicate this video for the memory of all those who died, as well as for brave Vietnamese soldiers who liberated Cambodian nation from their tormentors.